Hey everybody, it's Mario Otaku, and welcome to another First Impressions of the season. The Promised Neverland is one of the highly anticipated and rated animes of the season. It's pretty clear there's a lot of excitement from the people talking about it, but how does it really stack up? Does it deserve its hype? Well, let's dive right in. In the first scene, our three main characters, Emma, Norman, and Ray, are introduced. There's some exposition-heavy dialogue telling us how they've lived on the compound the day they were born and how they're restricted from going near the borders. After the opening sequence, we're introduced to the other children in the orphanage, and we find out that the three are the oldest of the children. There's also a very upbeat atmosphere in the dining room. It's like, it's a sunshine happy day. But then, all of a sudden, the camera just zooms right into the numbers tattooed on their necks, and the music suddenly goes, wah. Subtle. After taking tests on this dystopian-style scanning machine, they're let out to play a game of tag. And after they're finished, and while they're taking a rest, they notice that the people who've left the orphanage have never tried to contact them. I mean, that's pretty odd, right? Why wouldn't they? They all grew up together. Is there no communication system? I don't know. That's the thing. We actually do not know what time period this is, if it's even taking place in our world. And so when Connie leaves to meet her new family, Norman and Emma rush out to give her the plushie she left behind, where they discover the truth about their existence. You know what? I think I'll get into the bad stuff first, because there's actually way more things this show does right, and I like ending on a good note. The first and most obvious issue, or maybe a personal gripe that I have, is with the exposition-heavy dialogue in the beginning. It's just very unnatural to hear kids or even people talking that way. Mother always said, never go near the fence. We've been here since the day we were born, don't you remember? Yeah, of course I remember, right? Like if you grew up together, it's not like they needed to be reminded of that. Unless they weren't talking to each other. They were talking to you. Now, this is a very minor issue that goes away after the first half of episode 1, so it's really not that bad. I just would have preferred a straight up voiceover, and when I peeked at the manga, it seems like they did that. It just tears right through the exposition and gets right on with it. But I guess I know why they did that, because episode 1 of the anime only went to the end of chapter 1, so they had to stretch it out in some way. I mean, the first chapter of the manga only took me like 2 minutes to read, or less. So let's talk about the twist. I actually have a lot of mixed feelings about this because it's a forgivable issue. I'm actually quite fond of dark twist animes like Madoka Magica or School Live, but unfortunately the Promised Neverland is an example of what not to do if you want to have maximum impact on your audience. All three of them foreshadowed and telegraphed hints at what was going to happen, but what School Live and Madoka Magica did, it had subtlety. A good twist is one that gives you enough hints that fly just under the radar. It's noticeable, but it's not in your face. And when the whole truth is dropped, everything falls into place and all those little hints they gave you suddenly make sense. But the Promised Neverland basically said, hey, look at these tattoos. You see the tattoos? Like, I don't know, when was the last time humans were systematically tattooed? So the Promised Neverland understood the foreshadowing part, but it sadly missed the seminar on subtlety. It's about as subtle as getting punched in the face. Now I know, some of you want to punch me in the face for saying this because it's a beloved anime, it's a beloved franchise, I get it. So let's get on to the good stuff. And as I said, there's way more this show does right. The main attraction for the Promised Neverland is not the twist, because Mao did reveal it in the synopsis. Like, I actually didn't notice it. Someone did say, oh yeah, they revealed it. So I had to go back on like the Wayback Machine and then find like an old archive of it. So the twist wasn't the important part, but instead it's the game of tag, that 4D chess they're gonna have to play if they wanna make it out alive. But it seems like Isabella, or the mother, is always a step ahead of them. So if the world outside is like demon-infested territory, then it means that humans are the livestock in this case. And unlike what we do with our farm animals, like, we got humans in charge of the farm, the demons have one of the livestock pretend to care for the others while they secretly prepare them for slaughter. It'd be like having a cow run a dairy farm. So what if Isabella was the smartest of the previous generation of kids at this farm, and she was like the last one standing? I mean, that could probably explain why she's unbeatable at chess. Also, how is she able to track them, right? Like, she has this little pocket watch thing, and the kids came to the conclusion that they had something implanted in them, right? So is the flower coming out of Connie's body related to that? They kept focusing on the water dripping in that dark hallway, and her body was covered in water. So what does that mean? It's like, did the flower grow from inside of her, or did they stick it into her? I don't know what the heck is going on. But that's the great thing about the show. It's the suspense and the mystery that really pulls this whole thing together. They're trying to outwit someone much, much smarter than them and learning about their world as they go along. So I can forgive the issue I had with the twist because it was just there to establish the situation they're in. Now, what makes a story more suspenseful is how likable or empathizable the characters are. If you don't care about any of them, then their struggles would be meaningless to you. You just don't care. You can say that their characterizations are on the sparse side, but come on, they're kids. Their personalities aren't gonna be super deep and complex, but they're likable. Emma is the idealistic, caring person that wants no child left behind. Norman is the most intelligent out of all three, but he likes Emma, so he agrees to go with her plan, even though Ray thinks that it's totally irrational and will get all of them killed. I mean, imagine trying to carry, like, I don't know how many kids there are, like 30 kids? Like, escaping with that many people is pretty much a death sentence, but they're gonna do it. From this short interaction, you can already get a good sense of their character. Also, having your main characters be kids, it's a pretty easy way of making us empathize with them. Maybe it's an innate protective instinct we have, but I want them to win, and I hope there really is a future for them outside the walls. Let's talk about the animation. This is probably the most solid part of the show. I mean, the scene where they were creeping through the forbidden, like, hallway place, whatever it was very well done. Like, I thought the manga didn't do itself justice, but the camera work in the anime was awesome because it created the right amount of suspense and creepy factor. The way they linger on certain shots, it's almost like the anime was holding its breath as well. It's not as intense as a Stanley Kubrick film, but The Promised Neverland was spot on accentuating that uneasy feeling. Something that a lot of people won't notice or care for is the nice depth of field effect. Normally, most anime would just blur things that aren't in focus, and if they're feeling fancy, they'll rack focus from one character to another, like this. But it never really felt realistic. It's always felt a little bit janky. But in The Promised Neverland, they take it a step further and have foreground, midground, and background elements all in one shot. And when the focus goes from Don to Norman, the people in the foreground becomes less blurry as a result, giving it a more realistic feel. The soundtrack during the episodes are actually pretty subdued. It's very, very atmospheric. And it's only until the end where it ramps up and becomes epic. Like, I absolutely love the first song when the reality of the world just hits them. It's actually pretty beautiful, but also very haunting. I guess there's a parallel with the art style of the characters and like how cute they are and innocent they are, but it's contrasted with the messed up world they're in. I think it's a great blend of these two themes. Other than the gripes I had in the beginning, The Promised Neverland looks promising. I think I get the hype. The pacing and the structure of the episodes leaves me wanting more and hoping that next week will be over so I can find out what they're going to do next. So, should you watch The Promised Neverland? Yes, you should. But what do you think about The Promised Neverland so far? Are there any animes you're excited for this season? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe. And as always, my friends, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.